Good evening. Welcome to the regular scheduled meeting of the Calistoga Planning Commission for January 23rd, New Year 2019. May we have a roll call, please?
Noted for the record that all commissioners are present with the exception of Commissioner Scott Cooper, who is recovering from surgery.
Thank you. Would you please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item C, public comments. Public comments is an opportunity to address the Planning Commission on items of interest to the public that do not appear on the agenda. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes. The Commission cannot consider any issue or take action on items raised during public comments. Anyone out there have a public comment? I do. I'll make it short and brief. There's some comments that have been made in the past here, in these last few months by a certain individual, well, of which I take a little offense to, but not a big offense. But I would like to tell you, each commissioner here, Commissioner McNair, Commissioner Wilkes, Commissioner Abernathy, that I am privileged to serve on this commission with you. I find you wonderful people. You always take the heart of the community when you make your decisions. You do it in transparency, honesty, and integrity, and I want you to know that, and I support you 100%. So that's all I have to say of that. Anyone else? Now, I'll give you one more chance. No more public comments? Okay. Very good. Thank you. I can't, for what? Yeah, I'll tell that to my wife, and I'll be divorced tomorrow. Okay. Moving on. Adoption of the meeting agenda. Do we have any comments? If not, do I have a motion to approve?
No, actually, we do have an amendment. I failed to add election of officers to this agenda, so could we please add it as a new business item after adoption of the consent calendar?
I wondered about that.
Time for our annual election of officers.
Okay.
So moved.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thank you. Okay, then we will have the election, or nominations, I guess, and elections, or vote on officers, whatever the proper description is.
I would like to nominate Chairman Coates to continue as our chairman.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. As for vice chair, I would, with pleasure, nominate Commissioner Wilkes as vice chair. Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. I believe that's all. We're all set? Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to communications and correspondence. I believe we have a little here that we were given.
I provide you with a copy of correspondence related to, from David Moon-Wainwright regarding all of the items on the agenda tonight, and also some letters have been distributed regarding item G2.
There's copies for the public back there as well.
There could be. I think there's 2 sets.
Okay, moving on to consent calendar for the minutes, approval of the minutes from December 12th, 2018. Do we have any comments on that? If not, do I have a motion to approve? I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Moving right on. Public hearings. Excuse me. Kaiser Permanente Office, use permit UP 2019-1. Consideration of a use permit application to allow the establishment of a formula business at 2436 Foothill Boulevard, Suite D. May we have a staff report, please? What about? We'll get it here shortly. Just take that. No problem. No, I love it. It's great.
Good evening, Chair Coates, Commissioners. Your first item tonight is use permit application 2019-1. This is for a proposed Kaiser office at 2436 Foothills, Suite D, over in the Riverly Center Shopping Center. The Kaiser office, it's going to be pretty small. What's proposed, 1 doctor, 1 nurse, pretty limited hours, just a couple days a month starting out. They'd like to keep the option of maybe expanding the days or the hours eventually, but for right now, that's what they're proposing. The zoning over there and the general plan designation are both community commercial. This would be going into existing office space. One of the things that's been interesting in processing this application is learning that 2,500 citizens of Calistoga are Kaiser members. And so it's a pretty significant number of Calistogans, and this would be a pretty big asset to them. Currently, they have to go to places like Santa Rosa or all the way down to Napa for appointments, and at least for some of them, this would give them an option of getting some of their medical needs addressed here in town. Again, limited hours, plenty of parking over there. There aren't anticipated to be any impacts on the surrounding neighborhood. This is normally a permitted use in the community commercial district. However, under the definition of formula business, Kaiser does fall under that definition, the way that definition is written in our code. Formula businesses of this type are allowed with a conditional use permit in that district. They do have to be resident serving. This obviously is. Staff is very supportive of this application. One of the things you will see in your packet is that we have crafted the conditions of approval that would go with the resolution. We've based those on the last formula business use permit that came through here. That was the Next Home Realty earlier last year. And so, as you can see, as the conditions are currently crafted, we have recommended no signage as part of that. However, we do believe that'll probably be a topic of discussion for your consideration tonight, what kind of signage may be allowed as part of that formula business. This item, this application is exempt from CEQA. Again, we do recommend approval of the use permit. As the planning and building director indicated, we've received one comment that's included in this email here. And as we've seen, we do have representatives from Kaiser here tonight who are available to talk about their proposal.
Very good, thank you. Any comments from commissioners before I open this up to the public? Okay, seeing none, this is a public hearing, so it is open. If someone would like to come up, the applicant possibly, that would be great.
All right. Hello. Thank you for having me. I want to say hello, and it's a pleasure to meet you in person. Many of the commissioners are gentlemen and ladies that we've spoken to about this application. So pleasure to meet you. Thank you for having us. I also want to acknowledge Zach and his hard work on this application, and he's been very, very forthcoming with information and just answering our questions about process. So
Could you give
Zach.
us your name so we know who we
And
can...
my name is Shiama Clooney. So
Okay,
I'm
thank
the
you.
Public Affairs Director for Kaiser Permanente for the Napa Solano area. And I'm just here to echo some of the comments that you've heard from Zach and talk to you a little bit about the context within which we are applying for this condition of use permit. What our goal is here is really to serve those members of the Calistoga community who have high acuity medical needs. I mean, that's primarily our intention at this point. And as you know, the closest Kaiser Permanente medical offices are 29 miles away in the city of Napa. And for many of these patients that I speak of, that presents an impediment to getting good quality care as regularly as they need it. And Kaiser Permanente really has a focus on preventive care. And so to the extent that people have to drive an extended period of time to get that preventive care, it can be difficult for people to make appointments and keep them on a regular basis. And we are trying to address that issue with this application. We understand that the City of Calistoga is a unique location and that you really place a premium on maintaining a quaint, historic charm here, and it's beautiful. We come here on a annual basis and a regular basis for various community efforts, and we definitely appreciate the historic nature of this town, and so we want to be deferential and respectful around that. At the same time, 48.8% of Calistoga residents are Kaiser Permanente members. 47% of those members are over 50 years old, and more than half of that group are over 65 years old. And really our initial focus is going to be on serving that group of patients. Medicare patients primarily with high acuity medical needs. Some of the most commonly occurring chronic conditions of this group of patients are heart disease, hypertension, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. So you can imagine for patients who are contending with these challenges, it's particularly difficult to drive some 29 miles, sometimes in heavy traffic. And so we're trying to remove this barrier to care. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to our physician in charge of our medical offices in Napa, and her name is Dr. Andrea Clark. And while Dr. Clark comes up, I'm going to have some handouts for you, primarily related to our signage request.
Good evening. The office that we're proposing here is going to be staffed by a family medicine physician and a licensed vocational nurse. And that'll give us the greatest flexibility in terms of seeing ages. So anywhere from newborns all the way through to end of life, as well as the licensed vocational nurse, rather than, say, a medical assistant or somebody like that, will give us the opportunity to do injections, to have an assistant with procedures, to be able to do anything that we need to that's reasonable and in the office setting. We initially expect to see about 8 to 10 patients a day, twice a month, but we are requesting that this is flexible. I think as patients find out that we're here, as the need is determined, some patients may want to see their primary care doctor in Napa. They have a relationship, they might prefer that, where other patients' convenience might be the most important thing to them, and so they would rather be seen here. So we would like it to be flexible. I expect a full-time family practice doctor will see about 2 to 3 patients an hour, so about 16 to 20 patients, 5 days a week, probably not weekends, but just during the week. And then we would also initially, we will be doing just general outreach. We're able to see what patients aren't meeting the goals, what patients don't have their hemoglobin A1Cs for diabetes in order, which patients don't have their blood pressure in order. So we are actually calling those patients and asking them to come in to be seen. The physician who we would like to come up here is wonderful. She's full scope. She's been in practice for about 13 years, so she's very experienced. She's excited about this project. She's super excited about being here. Personally, I'd like to come myself. I went to school in Angwin, and my daughter worked at Yoel Ray over the summer and she just went back to college in University of Puget Sound. So I've been enjoying this community since the 1980s, and love coming here and don't ever want to disrupt what it looks like. Having said that, we do have elderly patients that are going to need to wayfind. And as you know, the directory on the side of the building has very small print on it. You have to be within about 20 feet to see it. We went ahead and we worked with our regional group to try to find solutions that would blend more with the current monument in terms of color, brown, not using our registered trademark colors, so that it would blend with the community rather than being an eyesore out of character. That way patients who are driving up looking for what they need to find won't be confused and drive away thinking that they haven't gone to the right location. So other than that monument sign, there's the directory, and there's a pegboard internally in the lobby, and then there on the door of the suite itself, there's a sign there. So it's the main sign that shows what is in that building itself. So our goal is to be here. Our goal is to be what the community needs, and that will morph over time as we kind of look and see what's needed. We don't want the lack of signage to be an impediment to our particular group of patients that we think are in greatest need. And we just thank you for considering this and for working with us on this.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public like to speak? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and ask commissioners for their comments.
I just might say, I think it's a wonderful service and most welcome. The only issue I have is with the staff recommendation is the sign. I think we're treating them a little like illegitimate children. We have them, but we don't want anybody to know about it. And I think if they're permitted, they ought to be able to have reasonable signage. So with that addition, I would support it.
Commissioner Wilkes.
Following on to those comments, I have experience in terms of working in hospital design, and the greatest source of wayfinding research that I've ever seen comes out of the Kaiser Foundation. They really wrote the book on how to get around in a hospital and find your way. And I think that becomes a very important issue, certainly with this population of people who are going to be visiting this facility. But more important than that, I would like to make a very strong distinction between this facility and what we recently approved at the Next Home Realty. There are two. Number one, this is not in the Historic Center. Now, that is not part of the ordinance, but it's nevertheless a recognition. But more importantly, the language of the ordinance where it says exceptions may be made for formula businesses primarily meeting local residences and business owners' needs. Well, this is meeting only residents' needs, not even primarily, and that is a finding that everyone will agree that we can make. We did not make that finding with Next Home. We attached those conditions with Next Home because it was a formula business, and we did that without that exception. So I would say that if we've made an exception for this to the formula business, then the signage that they would be allowed would be as if the ordinance did not apply to them, because we're making a finding that the ordinance does not apply to them. So I would suggest that we allow the normal signage available to anyone be applied by staff in this circumstance, and they can make their choices as to how they want to do that within our normal signage guidelines.
Commissioner McNair.
Well, as usual, he said a lot of it for me.
I'll go around him next time.
It's obviously a primarily local serving business, and doesn't seem to even be up for discussion. Everyone seems to be in agreement on that. And as far as the signage, I do agree that having the words Kaiser Permanente on the monument makes more sense than something as generic as medical offices, just because of all the confusion that could lead in this circumstance. They've got 6 options here in the packet. Are you proposing that we not even go down that road and that we just strike item 3 from the conditions of approval?
We can go down that road in as much as we certainly approve sign designs.
Right. That's very normal.
For things. I would take the route of what is easiest visible from an automobile in this case. And I would probably not use blue because it'll fade and it's harder to see. And I don't know how many people really lock in on the Kaiser logo as much as the word Kaiser. I think Kaiser is the logo. So I would probably recommend that, but I'm completely flexible.
Okay. I have no problem with any of the signs that you presented tonight. I think they're all fine with me. There's no specific size I note, and maybe we leave that in the hands of, and Commissioner Wilkes just talked about that a little bit. What can you see from the street? How big should it be? What color should it be? I would feel comfortable just leaving it up to staff and what would work out. I do have only one question of you, and it's just mostly curiosity. You have 6 different ones, but the bottom 2 say by appointment only. would that not be something you'd want to do, so people know that it isn't driving down the street and it's, oh, wow, there's Kaiser, I'm going to it, but if it's out on the,
Right. So normally our sign would have in red, no emergency appointments available. Like that's what we have in Napa. And that looked, one, like an eyesore, and two, I mean, most people aren't going to drive over, although it happens. We'll deal with whoever walks in the door. But to us, it was, and that's what I was going to ask you. To me, the opportunity to put by appointment only helps people to not walk in as much. And when you only have one provider and one LVN, it means that they're going to be busy, and so to minimize that would be great. So that's why we chose that one.
I would like to simply make it as a requirement, because it makes total
Okay.
sense to me, and I would assume that it would help you, but.
Yeah, I think it will.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And then size-wise, I'll look for direction from, Commissioner Wilkes had brought up the sign itself, its color and size. Do you want to leave that in the hands of staff? And
I would leave it to staff. Staff needs to talk to any of this.
Okay, so we would want to amend number 3 to reflect that? Okay. Any other comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
This general proposal is more, for me, rather than the Next Homes review, is more similar to the Best Western discussion
Yes.
that we had before, because
Correct.
we did deal with their corporate logo, and it was a different circumstance. The monument was already existing, and we were mostly just finessing.
Exactly.
Have a motion? Yes.
Could we just give Zach an opportunity to review the condition as
Okay.
Condition number 3.
Excuse me. From what I'm hearing is that you do want to require the words by appointment only,
Correct.
and otherwise that the final design and size will be left to staff to determine in conformance with the zoning
Yes.
code sign requirements.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right. That being said, I again will ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution approving a use permit application to allow operation of a Formula Medical Office business at 2436 Foothill Boulevard, Suite D, as conditioned.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Moving on to public hearings. Number 2, Remax Gold Office, use permit UP 2019-2, consideration of a use permit application to allow the establishment of a formula business at 2450 Foothill Boulevard, Suite K. Staff.
Thank you, Chair. As you indicated, this is over at 2450 Foothill Boulevard, Suite K. This is the same shopping center as our last public hearing application. This is an existing Calistoga business relocating to a new location. Again, the zoning and general plan are both community commercial, no issues with parking or otherwise any other detrimental impacts in the area. Again, normally this would be an allowed use, but it does fall under the formula business ordinance, as it is part of a national brand. Again, staff has used, at least initially in the conditions of approval, the same conditions that were attached to Next Home. Again, I understand that'll probably be something for the Planning Commission to discuss. Again, this application is also exempt from CEQA. Staff supports this application and does recommend approval of use permit 2019-2, and the applicant is here tonight.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, any comments? Okay, then I will open the public hearing and ask if the applicant would like to come forward.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing tonight? I am here to...
Tony, could you just give me your full name?
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
My name is Anthony Pereira. I've owned and operated an independent real estate brokerage in Calistoga for over 20 years at 4 different locations in the downtown area. First of all, I'd like to thank all the local business owners, my clients, and residents for supporting me through this process. I've worked for them for many years, and I truly appreciate their thoughts and supports, because this has been a distraction not only for my business, but has caused my family and me a little bit of financial duress. I did not want to move from the location on Washington Street. I was there for over 8 years. I was forced out. I had several conversations with the owner, and it was made very clear to me that I had to move by December 31st and vacate or be evicted from my space. I met with many owners in the downtown area, and I came to the realization that Calistoga's changed. It was very expensive in the historical downtown area, and I was going to have to leave the downtown area that I really loved. I met with Josh from Heritage Catering. We signed a lease. I completed the tenant improvements at my own expense and moved my business and signage from Washington Street in September. At no time during the discussions with the city personnel in the months that before I moved did they ask me to submit a $2,500 fee and submit an application to the Planning Commission. I was under the indication that I was grandfathered in because I had been at 4 different locations and I hadn't had any pushback prior. I'm a professional real estate broker. I deal with attorneys, brokers, landowners, and tenants every day. I'm very proactive in my business dealings. Within days after I moved, I contacted the business department that takes care of the city business license and notified them of my address change and my business license that had been kept current for the many years of operation during the city. I paid the transfer fee and assumed I was grandfathered in, but I was pretty naive to the fact that I was going to be treated as a new or a formula business. I would have applied before I moved with the city of Calistoga. This is a city that I've worked for 2 decades, working with the city on homes that had problems, selling the city of Calistoga's affordable housing homes, correcting problems with permits, red tags, and so forth. So when I received the letter on November 30th, it hit me like a truck. I immediately called city staff. I met with city staff, and in good faith, I removed the sign that I had moved from the Washington location. So now I'm relocated. I'm operating for over 2.5 months now, and I'm asking the Calistoga Planning Commission if I can continue my operations, providing honest real estate services and property management for the consumer in the local area here. I'm also requesting I can keep some of my signage. The one on Foothill that we talked about with Kaiser, the Quonset, simple Remax. It's a commercial area. It's not the historical downtown of Calistoga. And why I would like to keep the signage is ultimately moving out there, I lost all the walking traffic. There's no walking traffic in Riverly besides the tenants that are there. We have a great, vibrant area that's coming together in Riverly. And it's nice to see a lot of small businesses working together, and Kaiser and the new coffee shop and Josh, we all work together in that area to provide a good service to the community. Part of the reason why I need the signage is because of the walking traffic. The city of Calistoga has strict guidelines on sandwich boards and all kinds of other signage. So there's no way for my client to find me unless they know exactly where I am. So I would like to keep the 2 small signs. I know it's against the Next Home regulations, but I'm not Next Home. I've been here operating as a real estate broker for over 20 years. I am like Ace Hardware. I am like other companies that have been here for a long time. State Farm Insurance, Belcor. These are all companies that if there was a fire or something had happened to their business, they had to relocate, we would have to make concessions for them. So, as a small business in Calistoga, we've endured economic recessions, we've endured uncertainty, fires, and this is a very tough environment to run a business anyways. I mean, I've seen businesses fall left by the wayside once a month we see somebody dropping downtown. So at this time, I want to have you consider this. I want to thank you for your time, and I hope for a fair decision, and so we don't have to prevent, the city and division more than we have now. So that's it.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Anyone else out there like to come up? And if see no one, do the commissioners? Oh, here we go.
Hi, I'm Richard Johnson, resident of Calistoga, former teacher here, and I've known Tony for years and years, back when he was UPS Tony. I taught his wife, I've taught his son. He's been our real estate agent for a number of years. He's been nothing but helpful. He has been helpful in the community. He helped my daughter and her husband when they were struggling here to find a home. They'd given up. They were going to move away. And it was thanks to Tony that they're still here and part of the community. I just want to voice my strong support for his proposal. And I hope the commission does make the changes necessary to respect his wishes. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Anyone else? Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen of the commission, thank you for taking the time to listen to
Joe,
Tony's needs.
Could you give your name, please?
Do I have to?
Well, you don't have to, but it's easy to refer back to, hey, that guy that just was up here.
All right, yeah.
Joe, could you come back then?
My name is Joseph Allen
Thanks,
Schneider.
Joe.
I own Pacific Tree Care for 42 years in this community. And I have high regard for this community and a high regard for the Planning Commission that makes choices about people who have long-term and short-term, perhaps, investments in making this community a better place. We have an ordinance here that was passed several years ago with the formula business. And, you know, it was very important that this happens. We don't need a McDonald's. We don't need a Burger King. But we need people like Tony that can represent individuals within this community that happen to be representatives of a different organization, such as a RE/MAX or so forth. That's not my position in my tree care industry. But I would hope that we could recognize, and I'm sure you do, the importance of finding homes for individuals who have businesses and who have employment in this community to buy homes, if that's even possible in this day and age in this community. You walk up and down up and down Lincoln Avenue, and you see so many businesses going out of this area, or just out of existence. It's terrible. We need to support these people, these small industries who are here to help people and help individual homeowners. And I appreciate the time that you guys have given to recognize the fact that there's a difference between a formula business, a small business, and a big business. We have Four Seasons, which is a formula business. We have Copperfields. We have Ace Hardwares. We have all kinds of people here who still add so much importance to the existence of this community's surviving. There's, right now, the world is in turmoil. Our country's in turmoil. Our little town doesn't have to be in turmoil. We can get together, we can grab our hands, hold each other's hands, and support one another. And that's what I hope that we can always continue to do in the small community of Calistoga. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone else? Seeing none, one last time, I'll close the public hearing. I'll start out real quick. I never do this, but I'm going to. Commissioner Wilkes. Actually, I will go from Commissioner McNair from left to right. Commissioner McNair.
Oh, okay, well. my understanding is that we're not necessarily here to, that yes, RE/MAX has been here for many, many years, and that the subject of the use permit is merely to formalize the relocation of the business from one location to another, not to discuss the merits of the business continuing or not. It's more of a review of the signage, crossing Ts and dotting Is. And similar to the discussion we just had about Kaiser, I don't have any objection to the RE/MAX bold out on the monument sign. It's low-key and it blends in with all the other signage that is already out there. The large sign, I think we would have had a more detailed discussion about, but now that it's not part of the request, I think that makes our job a lot easier tonight.
Thank you. These applications give me heartburn. We have rules, regulations that we're supposed to go by, but at the same time, we're a small community. I think Mr. Snyder pointed that out, and so did you, Richard. And that it's important that we don't lose these folks at all. And really, yeah, well, we've gone over it with Kaiser and their signage. It's the same issue here. You're out in a long way from downtown, so getting someone's attention, I think you need a little help. You really do. And on top of that, the applicant was unaware, and there's that saying, that's not any excuse in the eyes of the law. However, he was across from City Hall. He had a large sign out, and it was never brought to anybody's attention at that time. For whatever reason, it's not important. So you would really have no reason for that to trigger you to think to go back to ask whether you could or couldn't have that same signage. So I'm going to stand with Commissioner McNair on this, and I think that we do need to support our small businesses. I think it's important, and I know Tony, and I think he's done a good job in this community, and he is part of our community. And the ordinance was not designed to exclude these people or to take them out. It was designed for restaurants, large corporations, tourist accommodations, and those kinds of things. That was the intent. That's why we have the flexibility to grant exceptions to this. So I am very in strong support of allowing, as presented, the signs tonight for RE/MAX. Commissioner Wilks.
Well, I am certainly in concurrence with Commissioner Coates and McNair, but I would like to make a couple of things that we state for the record as applies to this particular case in comparison to what we may see in the future of something, or to what we went through with the Next Home application. And there's two important things I think in my mind. One is that the RE/MAX office was always grandfathered because it pre-existed the ordinance. So in the same vein as Ace Hardware, they were not made to comply after the fact because they were here before the ordinance. Now, in that time, Mr. Pereira did move his location, but I will say that and the Commission has heard me say many, many times before, a rule unenforced is unenforceable. He had his office with a very large sign across the street from City Hall for 8 years, and there was never an enforcement action in that instance relative to having moved his practice. So I would say that he was still grandfathered. Then the last point, I think factually, that we would need to establish for the record is that this was not of his choice. He was evicted from his space. If he had not been evicted, we would still be looking at that large sign, and he would still be in that same space. So I would not only support the application, but I support the requested signage that he has indicated here, that be allowed.
Commissioner Abernathy. Yes.
I don't have all the requirements for that Tim had just mentioned. I think, as Tony pointed out, this business is very tough all over, and it's particularly tough in this town right now. So I just have a problem where we're going to permit someone as a legitimate business to go into an area and then deny them the rights that they can't, the rights they need to function as a business with signage. So I wasn't part of the discussions on Next Home. I had a conflict because of proximity. But I don't need all of those requirements. I think just if they move in there and we permit them, then we ought to let them have adequate signage just to function as a successful business.
Thank you. Okay, that being said, I would also like to comment before we have a motion on this, that staff to reflect that you are applying the law as it's written. You don't make a judgment, and I don't want people out there to take shots at you because I think that's totally unfair. You're only doing what you're supposed to do based on the knowledge you've been given through our ordinances. So that's very important, that when applicants come in and they get a little discouraged and unhappy, that's why you have a planning commission that should listen, and I believe they've listened tonight. So I think it's important not to have people to go around bad-mouthing staff when they're only doing their job. I think it's critical, I think. So thank you for the job well done, and thank you, commissioners, for having an open dialogue. That being said, I will entertain a motion. Well, I'll do it myself. I move the Planning Commission adopt a resolution approving use permit application to allow operation of a Formula Real Estate office business at 2450 Foothill Boulevard, Suite K, subject to, would you read it back to us the same as we did for Kaiser, I believe?
It sounds like it's the same as Kaiser, that they would be have to comply with our normal sign regulations. Obviously, there would not be the by appointment only language
Correct.
That you included
Correct.
with Kaiser, but otherwise
Well,
it's the same.
we have exhibits so that we can just tag those
Use the
exhibits
sign.
as
You
proposed.
can do that too.
Yeah, I
That
would,
would be
I
fine.
think
That would be
good.
fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I would second that.
Okay, we have a, yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry,
Sal.
could I just clarify in his written request, the request requesting the approval of the small sign at the main advertising location for the complex, as well as the signage on the windows at this location. He is not specifically asking for the large oval building sign that he had downtown.
Right.
So is that, I
And-
just
and-
wanted
and
to stipulate that that is what you're approving.
For the record, there's an acknowledgement in the audience from the applicant says that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, the signage on the window and the signage on the door, the balloon,
Right.
and the monument sign,
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
as requested.
Yes.
Got it.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to general government, always fun stuff. General plan consistency determination for fairgrounds property purchase. Consideration of a general plan consistency determination for the purchase of a portion of the Napa County Fairgrounds property by the city of Calistoga. Staff, this has got to be exciting.
It is, I can't tell you.
I know, that's the reason you came tonight.
Can I make it really fast?
Yes.
As you know, the city's in negotiations with the county to buy a portion of the fairgrounds, and the state law requires that the Planning Commission, as the city's planning agency, make a determination that the proposed acquisition is in conformity with Calistoga's general plan. And as listed in your written staff report, there are several provisions in the general plan's open space and conservation element that encourage the preservation and development of the fairgrounds to the benefit of the community, and this action would, to purchase the property and continue the uses, at least in the foreseeable future, with future uses to be determined, would be consistent with these provisions. And so staff is recommending that the commission determine that the proposed fairgrounds property acquisition is in conformity with the City of Calistoga general plan.
Okay.
Happy to answer any questions.
It's not a public hearing, but I certainly would entertain any comments from the audience prior to discussion by the commissioners. Oh, this is such an exciting topic. I can't believe it. I don't have people running up to the microphone.
Could I just note,
Question for Lynn.
David Moon Wainwright mentioned in his letter something about egress and emergency egress.
Right, which
and,
isn't...
And we're at the very, very
Right,
early
not
stages.
applicable.
There's a number of access and utilities and all kinds of easements that are going to have to be negotiated. They're crisscrossing both properties, so that will definitely be keeping that in mind as the
Right.
negotiations.
But not pertinent
move
tonight.
The
forward.
question I would have, this resolution is for the purposes of the purchase, correct?
Yes.
It's not for the purposes of a proposed development. It is merely for the purchase.
Oh, yes. Yeah, any development of the site will be subject to
Yeah.
community-wide outreach and environmental review and
Various firefights.
all of those usual steps that would be taken for development of any property in the town.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Wilks, again. Well, any other comments?
No, I mean, the purchase of this property is a very, very smart move, and
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution determining that the proposed fairgrounds property acquisition is consistent with the Calistoga General Plan.
Do we have a second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Wow, we're moving right along. Matters initiated by commissioners. Anything exciting? It's a new year. No resolutions, no.
I'd
Nothing.
like to raise an issue about what I think is a need for a formal parking plan. It's my understanding that we don't have one now. And as you know, we hear a lot about growth, but the growth is kind of reverse growth in downtown right now. And I don't know how much of it's being affected by parking, but I think that does have an impact. And I think if we're in a position where we're accepting in lieu fees from people, and we accumulate that money, and we accept that burden ourselves to provide for the parking, that we need to have a formal parking plan. And we need to have it professionally done. We need to look into how we operate today, what our parking rules are they most efficient, and what are the current demands and future demands, and how are we going to meet them. So I don't know if we should do that now, but if not now, I would like to schedule it as a formal item on the agenda to discuss.
Maybe we could ask staff to look into that request and bring some information back to us so we can have a discussion on it and see what direction we might want to take. Okay?
Be fine.
You bet. Thank you very much. Anything else? Okay, not director's report. We're down to Jay.
So I'd like to congratulate Chair Coates and Commissioner Cooper for their reappointment to the commission, and it's been a pleasure serving with you. I'd just like to bring you up to speed on a few applications we're working on. We have received a use permit application for the relocation of the preschool, the Napa County Office of Education preschool, which is currently in the future location of the multi-use path along the Fairway extension, and so they're proposing to relocate behind the Boys and Girls Club. So we'll be bringing that use permit application to you hopefully in the near future. And we've also received a design review application for the replacement of the dwelling that was removed next to the Francis House. So that one's nearly complete, and we'll be bringing that to you. And I also just wanted to let you know that we are now posting a copy of the application materials on our website at the same time that we publish the public hearing notice and mail it out to the neighbors, to property owners in the vicinity, so they don't have to wait until the packet is actually posted the Friday before the meeting. So this way, it'll be there at least 10 days before. So if you sign up for e-Notify on the city's website, you will know if anything is posted there. So that'll give an additional opportunity for property owners and other members of the community who are interested in the items to review the application materials before the actual staff report and conditions of approval and all those other things are posted.
I have a question. If I can back up to the first one, the preschool. Who is the legal owner of the land when this comes to
It'll
us?
still be Napa County.
It was-
Hopefully it won't take that long to get,
Well,
for us
no,
to get
it
to you.
just-
They've executed a lease agreement with the county.
Okay, I just
And-
wanted to make that clear because the folks are asking who has what, where, and
Right.
everything's
No,
in limbo.
everything
so-
is still being controlled by Napa County, and it will
Okay.
be for the foreseeable future. It'll take many months. We have a 120-day due diligence
Right.
period
Right.
if we get that far. So, and then
Okay.
money will have to change hands, and it's going to be quite the process. So in the meantime, Napa County is the entity to contact if there are any concerns out there, any questions. But NCOE has made an arrangement already with the county to lease the property from them. So that would be part of our negotiations. Do we assume the
Do the
lease,
city
and
assume-
under
right.
what terms?
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, I guess we're to adjournment. Do we have a date, or are we still in
I'm
limbo?
sorry. Zach did want a minute
Oh,
to
yes,
ask
go ahead,
something
Zach.
of the commission.
Thank you, Lynn. I have one quick thing for you. Some of you may know I graduated from planning school from the University of Kansas, and came all the way out here to California to join you all. And our city manager, Dylan Feek, also graduated from the University of Kansas. We actually both graduated from the same program. It's the public administration program. It's one of the top in the country. And we actually had one of the same professors, not at the same time, but he was there a few years before me, but we had one of the same professors. That professor, her area of study is staff reports. Very glamorous stuff, but that is her area of study. While I was in school, I helped her with a few projects, and another professor related to her study of staff reports. And she is on sabbatical this year, and she is going to be doing a nationwide tour trying to talk to different planning commissions and learn about how to improve staff reports. And so I did tell her I would ask this planning commission if they would be willing to participate in that. My understanding is you'd watch a very brief video, skim a staff report, and then at some meeting when she would actually be available to be here, have a brief discussion on what you find valuable in staff reports and how you would like to see staff reports improved. So in addition to helping an academic study, you'd be giving some guidance to Lynn and I and how we can do our jobs better. So if that's something you'd be willing to do and participate in, we'll let her know. And if that's something you feel you don't have the time commitment to commit to, then that's okay too, but just wanted to put that out there.
Well, education is priceless, so I have no problem with it personally, and it sounds like the commission's in full support, so yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's fine.
Individually, once a time has been determined.
Okay.
And it's a voluntary participation, obviously.
If that's what you'd like.
Okay, we're back to the next scheduled date.
We believe we'll still be meeting February 13th, but we won't know for sure at the beginning of next week. We'll let you know we'll let you know by next Tuesday.
So we'll adjourn to the next scheduled planning commission meeting in February. Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.